and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. The subject I'm speaking about today does require a trigger warning due to it being about intra-familial childhood sexual assault. I would also like to let everyone know that there are counsellors present today from Encircle and Acada if anyone is impacted by my speech or would like to talk to anyone at the end of today's proceedings. I also have a website, dragonflyadvocacy.com.au, that anyone can reach out to me on or find links to organisations to help them further. I would also like to pay homage to everyone on the front line dealing with violence day in and day out. These people who are in the trenches are the unsung heroes. So my name is Deb Aldrick and I am an intra-familial childhood sexual assault survivor, and I am here today speaking up so others may also find the strength to raise their voice. Intra-familial childhood sexual assault, or IFCSA for short, is sexual abuse that occurs within a family environment. And it is one of the most toxic and debilitating forms of abuse that can be brought upon a child by a family member. This is a subject that we don't talk about as a society because it's taboo, and no one wants to hear about it, let alone that admit that it happens. And particularly admit that it happened to them as a child or their family member. When we think of domestic violence, we often think of people being physically or emotionally hurt, coercive control or financial control, etc. But what we don't usually think of is children being sexually abused by a family member. I really want this topic to be included when we speak of domestic violence in the future. Domestic means home and sexual abuse is violence. So child sexual abuse that occurs within the family home is most definitely domestic violence. And a child being safe in their own home should be a fundamental right. The men and women who become the abusers or victims of domestic violence may well have been involved, one way or the other, as children of IFCSA. This can come about from these men and women not being helped or believed about their childhood abuse. This can also be because they were not held accountable for abusing other children when they were younger. I want to tell you a little bit about my childhood now. When I was little, I was made to feel like what was happening to me was just a game, but it wasn't. It was manipulation, control, and ultimately abuse. Abuse from a trusted and loved family member. A family member I looked up to and thought the world of when I was little. A person I followed everywhere they went and did everything they told me to do. Someone who told me it was a game we were playing at, a secret game. Someone who made me feel like I had to participate, and because I wanted to make them happy and like me, I did this. This participation was not something I had a choice in though, due to my age and vulnerability. I didn't have the emotional or intellectual capacity to give consent. And when I got older, the shame of feeling like I did this willingly was unbearable. Sorry. That shame and guilt kept me quiet. It kept me down, it made me feel isolated. This person who did these things to me changed me in so many ways. I went from being a carefree, happy little girl to a sad, anxious, unsure and clingy child. A child that didn't grow but instead regressed. A child who showed a lot of confidence and potential in early primary school, but was a shell of herself by high school, barely able to function. A child who couldn't understand why she felt this way, why she was unsure of her place in this world, her friendships, and most importantly, her own worth. Not able to put into words what was happening and feeling like this must be how everyone is treated. A child who was silenced and kept down by the control of this person. Tormented, belittled, and made fun of, as well as the sexual abuse. They broke my young spirit with this control and manipulation. They weren't normal, they had the problem, but I became the collateral damage in their deviance. They violated my personal space, my body, and my mind. They took advantage of and exploited my good nature and vulnerability. They took away the feeling of safety in my own home. And once I did speak up as a child to my adult caregiver, I was made to feel that what was happening to me wasn't that important. This was the most trusted adult in my life. Just forget about it and move on was how I was made to feel. So there I was again being told that my feelings weren't valid or important and forever questioning myself. My sense of worth was defeated once again. This silencing and feelings of shame went on for decades. This affected every part of my adult life also. The trauma that developed from having one of my family members abuse me did not just go away as I got older, it sat inside me. And I also had to be around this person for the majority of my life as they were a family member. Every time I spoke up, I was pushed back down and silenced again. I had to suck it up and go on like nothing had happened and nothing was wrong. I was shown that our family image was more important than me. And then as the years went by, I ended up pushing my pain and trauma down because it was too hard to deal with. But as I aged, this trauma started making its way to the surface, no matter how hard I tried to keep it down. I equate it to having a rubber ducky in the bath as a kid. You can push that rubber ducky under the water, but it always pops up again, and so did my trauma. But a few years ago, I finally worked it all out. All the pieces are in place and the puzzle is now complete. None of the feelings I felt about myself as a child are true. I am whole again, I have found my worth, and my judgment is no longer skewed. And now I found my voice, I found my confidence, I found my place in this world, and I found my talent. But more importantly, I found my purpose. And my purpose is to help others still stuck in their own living hell. And the reason I've written about all these things in my book, Circling the Wagons, is to show other survivors what's possible. It's an important part of our healing process to find these kinds of purposes in our lives, so we can feel proud of ourselves, finally. And once we find what we are capable of, we need to show others and help them also. Teach it forward. This can be the new cycle which brings light instead of darkness and stops the silence from past generations, but instead lets us raise our voices and receive help and healing. My healing came about by educating myself about what happened to me, including understanding my trauma responses and continuing to seek professional help throughout my life. But one of the biggest changes came about when I stopped seeing the person who abused me, gave myself permission to be put first, finally. Then eventually I had to distance myself from the person who didn't protect me, as my trauma responses were still being triggered by being around them. If I hadn't made these moves away from these people, I would still be stuck in the silencing cycle that my family put me in, unable to find my voice. I've also healed by taking up meditation to calm my mind, exercising, and moving away from other people who were not good for my mental health. Acknowledgement. This word changes everything. Acknowledging what happened to a child means you are giving them the opportunity to receive help and healing, as well as a fighting chance to be whole again and become a well-adjusted individual for their own children. I think families can get through almost anything if they open up, confront the problem, and seek help and healing. But silence and secrets will never allow our loved ones the peace they require to heal and have a healthy life. This is why the adults or caregivers of children must listen and act when their child is young and not silence their family member. Don't be judge and jury if your child tells you they are being hurt. You need to believe them. Always seek professional help for your vulnerable child and get them away from their abuser. They only have you to speak for them. Silence can be used as a weapon against children. Speaking up as a child when you feel uncomfortable in a situation is like having a superpower. So don't take their power away when they are strong enough to speak up. Adults should also look for signs of changes in their children, or listen if your child tells you they don't want to go with someone or be around them. Faking illness, becoming clingy, or just generally a change in your child's behaviour are things to look out for. I personally have seen so much suffering from friends and other family members throughout my life who've been through similar circumstances, and I decided last year that enough was enough. I found my superpower again and started advocating for other adult survivors to speak up, and I did this by telling my own story on Braveheart's website, social media, and in a local paper. As I mentioned previously, I have also recently published a book called Circling the Wagons, and this book is written from one survivor to another. It is a guide on how other adult survivors can work through their trauma, educate themselves to understand all the emotions they have struggled with their whole lives, and get to a better place to move forward and become the person they were born to be, to take back their power that was stolen from them as children, to say, I am important enough, I am good enough, and I am strong enough to raise my voice and stand up for myself and command respect. And once we stand up for ourselves, it gives others who have endured this kind of abuse a voice and an understanding that they are not alone. I've come to realise throughout my own healing journey that as survivors, if we don't deal with our mind, our bodies will do it for us, with things like illness, panic attacks, anxiety, and depression. My mantra is, the only way out is through, and I feel other survivors need to educate themselves as much as possible about what happened to them to be able to make it to the other side, where acceptance of ourselves and healing begins. I'll no longer put myself last for the sake of appearances in my family. I'll no longer let the person who hurt me continue to hurt others because I feel too ashamed to speak. I was only a kid and I am not responsible in any way for what happened to me, so I won't keep your secret any longer. And what I've learnt from educating myself over the years, and what other survivors do need to realise, is that we are the only ones responsible for our own healing journey. I have lost family members by speaking my truth, but what I've gained in knowledge, pride and confidence has astounded even me. A person who never felt strong enough to speak to a crowd, let alone put myself out there about a subject such as this. But something in me knew it was my time, and for the first time in my life, I didn't give up on myself. I just knew I was meant for more. As Rafiki says in The Lion King, the past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. And I've most certainly learned from it. And because I want others who have experienced IFCSA to be able to connect, I've come up with a hashtag. Hashtag same here, no shame here. Sometimes the hardest lessons in life give us the most important tools, and these tools I now want to share with others via my book and advocacy work. I know there are countless others still hiding their pain. Many of you may be here listening today. So I will end by saying this. Let us be the voice for the ones who come after us, instead of the silence from the ones who came before us. Thank you.